I had always prided myself on the trust and comfort I had with my husband, James. We met in college, fell in love quickly, and built a life that I thought was built on respect and honesty. For years, everything seemed perfect. We were that couple that people envied, the ones who always had each other's backs. I believed in him, and I thought he believed in me, but nothing could prepare me for the gut-wrenching betrayal that would come crashing into my life. It started subtly, the changes in his behavior. At first, it was small things I brushed off. He was working late more often, his phone buzzing nonstop with messages, and the familiar, almost comforting routine of our evenings together was replaced with late-night emails and long hours in the office. I tried to ignore it. After all, he was a hard worker, and his job had always demanded his attention. I trusted him completely. But then came the moment I couldn't ignore. I found an envelope in his briefcase one evening, hidden in the back behind a pile of old files. It was from the office, addressed to him. I opened it out of curiosity, and inside was a thank you note, but what caught my eye was the personal tone of the message, the way the words seemed more intimate than professional. It was from Rachel, one of his colleagues at work, a young woman who had recently joined the company. The note was full of praise, but there was something in the way she wrote that felt off. It felt too personal for a mere work relationship. That was the first sign. I couldn't explain it, but my gut told me there was more to their relationship than just colleagues. But I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to question the trust we had built, so I ignored it. But ignoring it didn't stop the nagging feeling in my chest. Days turned into weeks, and the distance between James and I seemed to grow. He was distant, distracted, and every time I tried to talk to him about it, he would brush it off with excuses. "It's just work, honey," he'd say. "You're overthinking things." Then came the night that shattered everything. I had planned a quiet dinner for us, hoping to rekindle the connection we once had. I was excited. I thought if we could just spend some quality time together, everything would be okay. But when he came home, something was off. His eyes were too bright, his smile too forced, and there was an unease about him that I couldn't ignore. I had barely set the table when his phone buzzed. He glanced at it quickly, his expression changing for just a second. I asked him who it was, trying to sound casual. He hesitated before replying. "It's just Rachel from the office. She needs something for work." A simple answer, yet something in the way he said it made my heart race. I didn't want to believe it, but I had to know. I quietly grabbed his phone when he wasn't looking and saw the texts. The messages weren't about work. They were full of inside jokes, flirtatious comments, and plans to meet outside of work. My stomach dropped as I read through their conversation. It wasn't just an affair of the mind, it was physical. I felt like the ground had fallen out from under me. The man I trusted more than anything had been lying to me, cheating with her right under my nose. I felt a mix of emotions: betrayal, anger, hurt, but most of all, confusion. How could he do this to me? How could he betray the trust we had built over years? When he returned to the room, I didn't know what to say. I confronted him. The silence was deafening as he stood there, unable to meet my eyes. "I'm so sorry," he muttered, his voice trembling. "It just happened. I never meant for you to find out this way." The words didn't help. His apology didn't make it any better. The damage was done. I had never imagined something like this would happen. Our life, our love, seemed like a perfect picture, yet it was all a lie. Where are you watching from today? Have you ever had a moment where everything you believed in came crashing down? Let me know in the comments below. I needed time to process. I didn't know where to go from here or what the future held. But one thing was clear: I had to make a decision. What did I want for myself? Did I want to stay and fight for a relationship that had betrayed me? Or was it time to let go, to walk away and reclaim my trust and peace? The days that followed were nothing short of a whirlwind. I had always prided myself on the trust we shared, but now I was left questioning everything. The foundation of our relationship had been cracked, and every moment felt like I was walking on fragile ground. James had apologized, of course, over and over again, but his words felt hollow. How could I believe him? How could I trust him again? I needed space to think, to process what had just happened. I couldn't bring myself to look at him the same way. I tried to keep things normal for the sake of appearances, but the truth was, the man I thought I knew, the man I had built my life with, had shattered everything with one betrayal. It was hard to even look at him without feeling a mix of anger and sadness. I spent days replaying the conversations in my head, wondering how I had missed the signs, how I had been so blind to what was happening right under my nose. There had to have been more to it, right? How long had it been going on? And why her? What was it that Rachel had that I did? The questions gnawed at me, leaving me restless and exhausted. I avoided James for a while. Every time he tried to talk, I shut him out. He kept saying he wanted to make things right, that he would do anything to earn my trust again. But how could I believe him? How could I possibly forgive him for this? Every attempt to reconnect felt like a lie. Every word he said was tainted by the betrayal. I couldn't even bear to hear his apologies. It all felt too empty. One evening, after another argument, I decided I needed answers. I couldn't keep living in this state of limbo. I needed to know the truth, the whole truth. So I called Rachel. I had her number from James's phone, a number I had never thought to check before. My hands shook as I dialed it. When she picked up, her voice was calm, almost too calm. "Hello." "Rachel," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's Amelia. I need to know everything. How long has this been going on?" There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear her breathing, but no words came. Then she sighed deeply. "Amelia, I'm so sorry. This was never supposed to happen. I didn't mean to hurt you." "Did you ever think about me?" I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "Did you ever think about the fact that you were betraying my trust?" Rachel didn't say anything at first. The silence on the line was almost unbearable. But then, finally, she spoke again. "I never wanted to hurt you. This wasn't planned. It just happened." I wanted to scream, to shout at her, to tell her that it wasn't just an accident. It wasn't just something that happened. It was a choice, her choice and James's choice. But I didn't. Instead, I took a deep breath and said, "I need to know when it started. How long have you and my husband been seeing each other?" There was a quiet pause before she spoke again. "It started a few months ago. At first, it was just work-related. We spent a lot of time together on projects, and then it turned into something more. I never meant for it to go this far, Amelia. I never wanted to hurt you." Something about her words struck me. Part of me wanted to believe that she was just as much a victim in this as I was. But then the anger flared up again. This wasn't just an affair. This was an act of betrayal, something that had been building over time, behind my back. "Thank you for telling me," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "I don't know what else I expected to hear, but at least now I know. You can't undo this. Neither of you can." I hung up the phone and sat there in silence for what felt like hours. The weight of the conversation with Rachel was overwhelming. I had always trusted James, trusted him completely. But now I was left with nothing but the pieces of a broken relationship. I had answers, but they didn't bring me peace. They only brought more pain. Where are you watching from today? Have you ever experienced something that completely shattered your trust in someone? Let me know in the comments below. I want to hear your stories and how you've coped with betrayal. I knew the next step wasn't going to be easy. James was still here, trying to apologize, trying to win me back. But nothing would be the same. I couldn't just forgive him because he said the right things. I couldn't pretend like this never happened. Trust, once broken, is never the same again. And as I sat there, staring at the wall, I realized something. I had to make a decision. What did I want from this relationship? Could I even continue to be with him after everything? Could I rebuild the trust that had been shattered, or was it time for me to move on? Days turned into weeks and nothing felt right. Every corner of the house seemed to echo with the silence of unspoken words. I couldn't look at James without feeling the weight of his betrayal pressing down on me. He tried, of course. He apologized over and over again, each time with a different promise. "I'll do whatever it takes to make this right, or please just let me prove I'm sorry." But those words, once meaningful, now felt empty. They weren't enough. I spent days, sometimes entire weekends, locked away in my thoughts, replaying every conversation, every moment of trust I had shared with him. How could I have missed the signs? Was I so blinded by love that I couldn't see the truth right in front of me? I was angry, not just at James, but at myself. How could I have let this happen? The hardest part was knowing that it wasn't just a one-time mistake. James and Rachel had carried on an affair for months. The knowledge ate away at me, and I felt betrayed by not only my husband, but by the very people I had trusted. Rachel worked closely with him, spent hours with him every day. How many of those hours had been filled with things I would never know about? I hated the idea of it, the thought that someone else had shared that intimate space with him, someone who wasn't me. But as much as the anger consumed me, I couldn't deny that a part of me still loved him. I still cared. And that was the hardest pill to swallow, the fact that I had a love for him that hadn't disappeared, despite everything he had done. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do with that love, but I knew one thing. I couldn't keep pretending nothing had happened. One night, after a particularly exhausting day, I decided it was time. I had to confront him in a way that would force me to make a decision. I couldn't go on like this, living in limbo, wondering if I could forgive him, wondering if I should stay. I needed clarity. "James," I said, my voice steady, though my heart was pounding in my chest. We were sitting in the living room, just the two of us, the tension hanging heavy between us. "I can't keep living like this. You broke my trust, and I need to know if you're truly sorry or if you're just trying to fix things because you feel guilty." His eyes softened. He opened his mouth to speak, but I raised my hand. "Let me finish. I don't want to hear another apology unless it's accompanied by truth. I need to know everything, how it started when it started, and why you let it continue. You owe me that, even if it hurts me." I could see the conflict in his eyes. For the first time, I wasn't the one who was afraid to ask hard questions. He was, but I wasn't backing down. This was my life too. This was my heart. "I never wanted to hurt you," he began, his voice shaking. "It just happened. I was lonely. We weren't connecting the way we used to, and Rachel was there. I know it's no excuse, but it was a mistake, a huge mistake that I regret every single day." His words stung. I had never imagined that I wasn't enough for him. He had never voiced any dissatisfaction, never gave any sign that we were struggling. But I had to hear the full story. I had to understand. "Why didn't you stop when you realized it was wrong?" I asked, the bitterness in my voice betraying the vulnerability I felt. "I don't know," he whispered, his face full of regret. "I was selfish. I didn't want to face the problems in our marriage, so I escaped. I didn't want to confront the issues between us, so I took the easy way out." I felt sick to my stomach. The words were like daggers. He had chosen her over us. It wasn't just an affair, it was a betrayal of everything we had built together. "Amelia," he said, reaching for my hand, but I pulled it away. "Please, I don't expect you to forgive me, but I'm asking for the chance to make things right. I'll do anything." I didn't respond immediately. I needed time, space, and answers, ones I wasn't sure I would ever get. "James, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about you. It's about me. It's about whether or not I can live with this, whether I can rebuild the trust we had, or if it's too broken for me to fix." I stood up, my mind racing. I couldn't make this decision on the spot. I needed to think. "I can't make a choice right now. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know this. I can't continue like this. You've broken something, and now you need to show me, really show me, that you're worth my trust again. But I need time, and I need space to figure out if I even want to try." "Where are you watching from today? Have you ever been in a situation where you didn't know if you could forgive someone? What did you do next? Let me know in the comments below." I walked out of the room, leaving James sitting there, unsure of what to say or do next. I wasn't sure either, but I knew that I couldn't live in this limbo any longer. It was time to decide if I was ready to move forward or if it was time to walk away. The days that followed the confrontation with James were a blur of emotions. I had asked for space, but even when I was physically alone, my mind was filled with nothing but thoughts of him and what he had done. The betrayal had cut deep, deeper than I had ever imagined. I couldn't shake the feeling that the life I thought I had built with him, our home, our memories, everything, was a lie. I found myself avoiding him, not just physically, but emotionally too. Every time he tried to talk to me, to apologize again, I felt like I was slipping further and further away from him. I needed to think. I needed to figure out what I wanted, not just from him, but for myself. I couldn't live in this state of uncertainty any longer. I spent my days working, trying to distract myself from the chaos in my head. But when I came home, I was faced with the reality of the situation. I was living with a man who had betrayed me. I had asked for the truth, and I had gotten it, but it didn't feel like enough. There were still so many questions left unanswered, and the worst part was the emotional toll it was taking on me. I felt so conflicted. Part of me still loved him, still wanted to believe that we could move past this, but another part of me felt like I was suffocating under the weight of it all. Then came the day that I couldn't ignore the truth any longer. I had gone to my best friend's house for some advice. I needed a fresh perspective, someone who wasn't in the middle of this mess, someone who could see things clearly. Over coffee, I poured out my heart, explaining everything that had happened, the late nights, the apologies, the conversations with Rachel, and what I had been feeling since that fateful day. "You need to do what's best for you," my friend said softly, her gaze compassionate but firm. "You can't keep living in this gray area. You either decide to rebuild or you decide to move on." It hit me hard. I had been so focused on him, on what he needed, on how I could fix things for us. But what about me? What about my own happiness, my own well-being? Was it worth staying in a marriage where trust had been shattered? Was I strong enough to forgive, or was it time to let go? The next few days were the hardest of all. I thought about the good times with James, the years we had spent together, and the love we had shared. But I also thought about the pain, the lies, and the betrayal. The love I had for him didn't disappear, but it wasn't enough to erase the hurt he had caused. That night, I made the hardest decision of my life. I sat down with James, who had been waiting for me to finally talk. I could see the hope in his eyes, the desperate need for forgiveness, but I couldn't give him that right away. It wasn't about him anymore. It was about me. "James," I said, my voice steady but soft. "I've spent the last few days trying to figure this out, trying to decide if I can forgive you, if I can move past this. But I can't make that decision right now. I need more time. I need to focus on me, on healing, and figuring out if I'm ready to move forward with you or without you." His face fell, but he didn't interrupt. He knew this wasn't an easy conversation for me either. "I know I've made mistakes. I've hurt you. I can't take back what I did, but I want you to know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild your trust if you give me that chance," he said, his voice low with regret. I looked at him, feeling a mixture of emotions. Could I trust him again? Could I ever forgive him? I didn't have those answers, not yet. But I knew one thing: I couldn't make any decisions based on guilt or what he wanted. I had to do what was best for me. I had to heal first. "I can't promise anything," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "But I need space to think, to find out if I can even look at you the same way again. You've broken something, James, and right now, I don't know if it's fixable." He nodded, his eyes filled with remorse. "I understand, and I'll give you all the space you need, but know that I love you and I'm not going anywhere." Where are you watching from today? Have you ever been in a situation where you had to make the hardest decision of your life? How did you cope with it? Let me know in the comments below. I walked away from that conversation with a heavy heart, but there was also a sense of clarity. I didn't know where this journey would take me, but I was finally making decisions for myself. I wasn't going to let this define me. I wasn't going to let his betrayal control my life. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: I was going to heal, and I was going to take my time doing it.